Meeting to order and recognize that tonight's meeting is being held on the traditional territory of the Sinixt people. So we have one small addition to add to the agenda. It'll be 10.4, and it's an update about the furniture regarding the reconfiguration of the boardroom by our Secretary Treasurer. Any other additions to the agenda or deletions or any changes in order? Seeing none, is there any objection to the approval of the agenda? Seeing none, we'll go on to the next item, approval of the minutes. I'm looking for somebody to, or I guess, are there any corrections or changes to the minutes of September 14th? Seeing none, any objection to the approval of those minutes? Seeing none, we have no presentations tonight or any committee reports, and we have no correspondence referred from the regular board meeting. So we're moving the only items on our agenda are unfinished business, and so 10.1, we're here from Superintendent Blaine regarding the 2020 vision for learning, and Mr. Mike McKay.
Thank you, the chair. I'll just hand out a calendar and dates. You can grab one here. So, as we have been discussing, we have several things going on around drawing in input and projects out there. And so it's all for the purpose of bringing in information to prepare us for 2020 Vision for Learning, which will be the 3-year document that the staff is going to prepare for the budget process this year. And so, as you're aware, we have Mike McKay here doing project work around Central Nanaimo and Ladysmith, as directed by the board last year. Also, Learning Services is embarking on what they would like to move into an annual process around open community forums in the schools. And so that'll be in October as well, and I'll talk about the dates in a moment. And also headed down in that area too is that we're talking about NDSS and information from that as well. So 2020 Vision for Learning, we wanted to secure, and after today we will be accessing your calendars to put in some dates. But as you're aware, Mike McKay has already been here working with the council, city council, and he also met with Ladysmith staff in September, and we will be meeting October the 18th with the board and Ladysmith Council for him to present the next steps in that project. And then October the 27th, the Learning Framework meeting. So that framework is a committee that I sit on with a group of community members, students, and staff that are developing the learning framework for the ministry and the district as far as communicating with parents. And that will be going on simultaneously. A lot of this input will come into this, and then the annual reporting, for example, the learning services reporting, et cetera, that we'd like to report out annually on how we're doing, will be incorporated into the learning framework, and we'll establish an annual process, step-by-step process throughout the year, which is connected from the strategic plan and the board's goals and mission statement right down to the then classroom as to school reports, school vision and goals, and then what's happening in classrooms. And so we're hoping to put all that together as the ministry has requested us to do for this year. So that'll be one of our meetings that we start off with. We will be putting together a survey that will meet the needs of all 3 of these pieces of actions, all the different forms, so that as we go along, there'll be one survey completed during that time that will inform us of all the different work that's being done. So there'll be very specific questions on the way through that. So from there, then Mike McKay will be in the district doing October the 28th. 3 different meetings with individuals. Superintendent and Mr. McKay will be meeting with our collective groups, some of our partner groups, those types of things, VHA, all those particular individual groups that we feel that we need to do face-to-face. Starting in November, on Tuesday, November the 1st, will be our first Learning Services Forum. We wanted to dovetail 2 meetings in one day. The school day meeting would be at a school, bringing students in and do a student piece along with the PACs there. And then that evening, we will do the a parent open forum for the community to bring in information on how we're doing, where we're going in 21st century learning, and get their input on it there. So the Nanaimo activity will be on the 1st of November, and then the following Tuesday, we'll do the Cedar Ladysmith. And we don't have the where we're going to be doing it yet or anything like that. I just wanted to make sure you had the dates. So that would be a double meeting time for learning services. And then from November the 10th to the 29th of November will be the Mike McKay meetings, both in Central Nanaimo, focused on Central Nanaimo, and Ladysmith specifically on those pieces. And he'll be gathering information. There'll be partner forums. The Central Forum would be the Central Nanaimo Forum that you'll see there on November the 28th, November. And I'm just looking for the Ladysmith Forum is on the 29th, so two days in a row there. So that's, I just want to make sure you had the calendar, and just above there, the learning services, I kind of put a couple comments down is to talk about today's world in education, the reporting order and new curriculum, those types of things. And then, as you're aware, Mike McKay will be talking about district zone vision, facilities, and partnerships. And the idea would be that we'll be able to bring all that together in December and start an analysis on the information and data we've gathered for the new year and the next project.
Okay, so Trustee Bob?
I just wanted to know if you're planning a meeting with Lanceville as well?
Lanceville will be included in 2 ways: partner group sessions, which will include First Nations groups, and we're not specifically doing Lanceville. It'll be included in the Nanaimo group.
Next on the list is Charlene McKay.
Thank you. Through the chair, when I look at the meetings on November 1st and November 8th for PACs, a lot of our PAC parents that serve their PAC executives do work. So I just want to make sure that if it's going to be PAC specific in the day, that there'll also be that opportunity in the evening as well.
Through the chair, we talked about that. We're hoping that PACs will be able to send representatives. Simultaneously during this time, principals will be meeting with their PACs with a kind of a canned PowerPoint presentation to do the same type of information sharing and information gathering. So that we go right to the PAC meetings and et cetera for that. And then also hopefully they will come en masse to the community forums.
Okay.
And that's the intent of those 2. And we haven't, as I said, decided on how we're actually going to put them together in working groups and et cetera. But it will be a working group type activity evening where we're gathering information and we're having input.
Okay.
Trustee Berzovich?
Thank you. 2 questions, very quickly. Are any of these in particular meetings that you would like us as trustees to attend?
There are, of course, the Ladysmith Council with the board is one. I think for trustees, you should get a flavor of as many as you can.
Okay.
Once again, this is not a consultation, but it's certainly an opportunity for you to come and listen and to engage in some of the conversations. It's a much lower key than we're looking at the bigger picture. We're not looking at individual pieces.
And will this be available online?
Once we go from this evening, then we will move on to stage 2 of organizing it and putting it online.
Thank you.
Trustee Solomon?
So I just want to ask, are you looking at a target date in November for a formal report from to the board from Mr. McKay?
No, we would be looking late December or January for the formal report.
Okay.
Yeah.
And would he be presenting, like he would actually be in person?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He will also come with his own suggestions, what he sees, the information that he's gathered, some possible recommendations around the bigger picture pieces. Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll move on to the next agenda item, which is also Superintendent Drain. This is regarding an update with this year's enrollment and an information sheet.
And, okay, I'm gonna move on to, yeah, you wanna, do you mind? Yeah, my mistake, sorry. So, I'll refer to the batch sheet to start with. So as the board may recall, at the middle of this year, middle of this summer, we were identified, the ministry moved $25 million to the system in administrative savings costs, and they provided us with reduced costs in the Next Generation Network and School Protections Program and other programs such as that, which added up for our school district $593,000. So those are savings that will occur as the year progresses along. So those costs, what we did was we entered into a process, worked with our principals. They went to the schools and talked about their different needs and et cetera. Learning Services then brought forward suggestions around how to spend some of that money and whether or not we wanted to redirect it at the time. We also talked to the different departments here and gathered some input. So as we worked through September, it became a little clearer on some of the things we wanted to spend it on. So this is in our operational budget. So for information to the board, we're putting an extra $297,000 towards EAs, and that EAs are over and above what the contingency would be. So it's meant for additional EA and classroom support, maybe some different ways of spending some money. There's $60,000 that will move into a Learning Services account, and that's actually a school-based account that we will be paying incidentals that the schools normally have to pay for out of their supply accounts for such things as moving whiteboards or putting in new pieces of facilities, etc. It's kind of to try to stop the leakage of the small charges back to schools during the year. So that does two things. It allows the schools to spend the money on other things closer to the classroom, and also maybe streamline some of the money there. And then the last one, we're recommending that we put $235,000 back to the schools and their supplies to particularly cover the new curricular expenses. As you're well aware, the ministry didn't give us any additional monies for that. And we think that this is also a good way for us to support the classrooms and et cetera. There are certain outcomes and et cetera that were moved around. For an example, I know that there's a science outcome in grade 7 now that was in grade 8, and so the equipment isn't there for the grade 7s, and it would have come at a cost. And so we were able to, I believe the minimum is about $3,500 going to one of our smaller schools all the way up to, I think the average is around $8,000 or $9,000 in addition to it in every building. So we're slowly getting more and more money into the schools to support that. And they all certainly do meet the three primary goals of meeting unique needs and the continuous improvement and enhanced facilities. So that is that one.
Charlotte?
Speak to that.
Thank you. On that one, through the chair, my question is, are those funds already allocated to the schools? Do they already have access to them, or is it something that'll sort of be sent to them shortly?
As of tomorrow, they will be allocated to the schools and put in as our September 30 enrollment. As soon as we confirm all that, then the finance department, none of the funds are in our schools yet for this year. Mm-hmm. They just spend kind of against what they they project they're going to have. And then, once September 30 and the money comes into the district, then it's allocated sometime in October.
Okay, thank you.
Trustee Solomon?
Can I just ask about the 300,000 for additional EA? What does that translate to in terms of numbers?
About 8 FTE.
Okay.
Great.
And whether or not it'll be their department to make the decisions on how to do that, Bob Essinger and his group, but there may be, they may top up EAs to ensure that they're there during instructional time the whole day, because I know that there's some gaps sometimes. It may come out as new EAs, it may come out in, all those conversations that have occurred, do we want to have some additional kindergarten EAs, those types of things, that's what that money's for. It's not enough, but it's another start. Yes.
Trustee Rowley?
This is through the chair for staff. 235,000 directly to schools to further support curriculum, assessment, and reporting. So what is that?
Curriculum assessment and reporting, or the 235,000?
Yeah, like what is specifically is that money going for? Is it going for staff or is it going for supplies? It's just really unclear what that is.
When we do this in a dispersal, it goes into the school supply account. And the school supply account is allocated in consultation with the school staffs as to the particular needs. The principals consults with the staff committee, and then they decide on the particular things that they need. So it comes out in a lot of different ways. If you recall, we did a dispersal last January. We allocated, I believe it was at that time, $1,500 also to primary to try to look at the kindergarten issue that was out there and those types of things. So we put it in, and then the principal works with each school, will then decide on how best to spend it for their own community.
So they've kind of said there's a huge need here, like in the previous budget years kind of thing.
Yeah, there's always a need. We've been reducing the budget, supply budget for years. And so just last January and this is the first time we've been able to do some incremental increases. And so that's important to note, that there hasn't been any increases for quite a few years. The other piece is the piece around, I just lost my train of thought. Anyway. Oh, new curriculum, thank you. And the cost of delivering some of those curricular pieces. We have new coding, we have new particular outcomes that we want to meet, and those types of things.
Doesn't the ministry provide that if they're requiring?
They didn't give us any. They didn't give us any new funding. No.
That's ridiculous.
So I have a question. I think I was on this conference call when they made this announcement, sort of giving us the administrative savings, saying that we wouldn't have to find that for this year. And there were two things that I remember from the call. One was that they wanted it to go to Frontline and have it reported out back to them about how we were using it. So I guess my question is, so these would be recurring savings then, correct? And these are how we plan on spending the monies moving forward. So it's not just this year, but next year and the year after and after that.
So after this year, it will be embedded in our operations budget, and so when we give you the original numbers when we start off, it'll be included in that. The starting point for we haven't decided whether or not the starting point of our school supply account will include this or not. Those will be decisions that, as we take a look at all the monies and how we disperse it as the budget goes along, that we'll have to make at that time. But for right now, that's this year. Next year, it's embedded in the budget. It's not going to have a specific number on it or account number code on it.
Right. Any other questions or comments?
I'm just sending it around, moving on to some enrollment. Thank you, Ms. Hamley, for getting that. That's my fault. I read it, I thought about it, and I said, oh, good. we're done. We're ready. Forgot to bring it to the table. So, last week in the education, now, once again, October the 15th is the kind of the final date that we'll receive our information back from the ministry around our final enrollment. So these numbers may shift and change a little bit, but this is the most accurate numbers, and we're feeling pretty comfortable that we can come back to you and say, this is some base numbers that we feel fairly strongly about. So as you can see there, under regular enrollment, there was a projected and an actual. So this is not about where we were last year. This is about the difference of projected and where we are today, because we established our budget on projected, and because we're above projection, we will receive extra funding than what we established our budget on, which means we're in a place where we can spend some of that money. And there's certainly some costs involved in that with extra students. So 272 students in regular enrollment. Distributed learning is down a little bit. ELL is up. So ELL is your English language learners. As you can see in our special ed level 1, which is the highest level of funding as well, we're down a little bit. Special ed level 2, the middle category, we're down quite a bit, and special level 3 is at 47. Now, there's something that occurs in the special ed funding that one of our categories is done annually, and it's a level 2 category, I'm using an old term. It was severe behavior, and it's now called, or is it still called that? Yeah, okay. Severe behavior, and that's the category that requires community agency connections and et cetera. It's done on an annual basis. So that is normally slow coming into the district every September. It takes us time to get it in. So we're thinking that some of this level 3 and level 2 is going to balance out a little bit. And in the special ed area, it's done 3 times a year. So if we miss it this time in, we'll pick it up the next time we put it into the ministry, so we'll still get the funding. But right now, that's what it looks like. And we have a slight drop in the adults, which comes out to, we anticipate $1.7 million, as you can see there. So I'll stop right there just for a moment to try to answer any questions around enrollment before I go on to some of the expenditures that we have already occurred. Yeah.
I was thinking.
Excuse me, trustee.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We have a list already. And
Oh,
you're not yet
I'm
on it. Trustee Ray.
So it says that the regular enrollment is up 273 students over projection. Is there a breakout of what is in high school versus elementary school?
Yeah, elementary significantly more. We're planning on bringing that information next month, if that's all right, because then we'll bring all the school information and et cetera around that. And we have about 230 elementary. Yeah, and the remainder, which would be 40 to 42, increased at secondary.
Okay, can I just have a follow-up? So we'll get a breakdown of each school, because I know these are the numbers up over projections, but there is still room in elementary. There's a myth out there that every elementary school is full, and that's not the case, right?
No, it's not the case. Certain communities have growth factors. Certain communities have a high transition rate, and they look like there's a high growth. But once you add in the incoming and exiting, it averages out. And then there's a couple communities that have dropped a little bit. But on the whole, I would say most schools are staying or going up.
Sure, trustee Solomon.
I wanted to go before him. No, actually, those are the kind of questions I was hoping for. And so we'll get a breakdown down the line, and that's great. I think that's, people want to know, where the kids have ended up, so that'll be good.
Good, thank you.
Mr. Zero?
Thank you. Through the chair to the superintendent, Blaine. The 47 are those new students that are designated under the level 2 or 3?
They're that's the difference between what we projected in level 3 and what we have. That's right.
So, well, I was just wondering, is that part of the need for a contingency because
Right.
they draw less money, but they're still in a
So what
building
we-
that is separated?
Yeah, no, and that's a good question, because what we experience is many students that show up later on in the summer in September that could be classified as in the special ed category, sometimes don't have the documentation for it, and/or we need to get in and do some assessments on them. And so often they'll get categorized at the lower level 3 to begin with. So we've identified them, but then we will begin working with them, and as we work with them, they will go up. So I anticipate that 47 may stay the same, but I anticipate a level 2 in particular to probably go down, meaning go up. That we'll identify more students at level 2, which, as you can see, will automatically then raise our special ed area. We have used in the special ed area all of our contingency right now. We had a lot of students that came in September requiring needs. We have a lot of hotspot areas, so not only did we use everything that we were assigned, but we also had about, I think it's $500,000 or so in contingency for EAs. And that was used, and then we also have created another $200,000 the board assigned to get us over the hump for that. So we're seeing a real need. We see some of the bodies here that represent that gray area that we haven't identified yet, and so we're hoping that that'll be some of the funds that we see as the year goes along.
Ms. Iverson?
Thank you. Can I ask 2 questions?
Sure.
Thank you. Through the chair to Superintendent Blaine. I think you answered my first question. I was just trying to understand the language here. And so level 1, level 2, level 3 doesn't translate to tier 1, tier 2, tier 3.
No.
No, that's not. It's
No.
not that. Okay. I understood that.
Low incident, high incident.
Okay. Okay, perfect. My second question is the line on asbestos survey. Is that specific to one school, or is that across the district?
Oh, I'll get there.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Trustee Robinson?
But it's the whole district.
I should probably know this, and I don't. Tell me more about the adults.
Maybe I can get some help on that.
Yeah, through the chair. Largely, the adult population is at Brandon Lake.
Oh, okay.
On occasion, we have adults come to us in other places, but largely we send them up to VIU.
Yeah, that's...
Yeah. We also have the House of Learning as well, where we have adult learners as well, but very, very few.
Yeah. Okay, I did know that. I'm smarter than I think.
Trustee Routley?
So by my calculations, then we have 12 more special needs students, and yet we don't have additional special needs funding out of this 1.7 million. That's what I'm seeing here.
That's correct. So the funding at a level 1 student, I believe, is
37,000.
37,000. Thank you. Level 2 is
18.
and a level 3
9.
9. So you can see if we lose some of the high funding, that has a larger effect on the budget than the low funding. So we want to make sure that we have the students categorized in the right areas, and that takes assessment and testing, etc.
But I'm just saying, when you have 1.7
Yeah.
million extra dollars, and then the classroom needs go up, disruptions, the quality of teaching in the classroom, like it would be a good idea to put some money into additional enrollment into that area, right? Because that's what we're hearing from families.
Right.
And I get that you've added some from contingency, but then it's just a reporting, the way it's being reported. Like,
Well,
but it's not being added here, is what I'm saying.
yeah. Well, in a way it is, Trustee Routley, because although it says that we are in a deficit of $527,000 there, for example, on number 2, we're already covering that $527,000 off in our budget. It's just that we're not being generated, we're specifically for the extra money that would be given us. So we have to demonstrate the due diligence to classify them to receive some of those monies. It's not that we haven't, but we're shifting monies that it happens normally all the time to cover that.
Oh, no, I get the way
Yeah.
the way you're shifting. I'm just disagreeing when I see DAC reorganization 3 FT excluded 180 grand,
I have got
but then
that.
no special need funding, right? It's right there. Yeah.
Well, okay.
Yeah, I'm just disagreeing. That's fine.
Let me talk about that for a little bit. As you see the $1.7 million there, when we move down to the expenditures below, those are expenditures. So in reality, we are paying that $527,000 plus the things down below. But let me move on to the next step, and then we can talk about everything together. So during the summertime, as normal, as the ministry gives us different monies and et cetera, and the board has experienced those pieces, there is also other expenditures that were unexpected that aren't in the budget normally. And so that is a normal process, and as the board may recall, our budget time for amended budget is in January. And normally by the time we hit January, we've had an opportunity to massage whatever's come to us over the summertime and the unexpected expenditures, and then put it all together and come to the board. So it normally, in our budget cycle, particularly last year, we would be dealing with some of these points that I'm about to bring up in the January amended budget. So so this money is enabling us to take care of those things now, for some of these things. And then in January with the amended budget, then the board will be able to look at what is spent or unspent, and then reassign it as you wish at that time. So the first point piece to this is the increases due directly to enrollment and the growth of program changes. As you're aware, we had to add 6 divisions at elementary school. The board would probably like to also know that when we dug into the formula and looked at our weaknesses out there in the system to support students, we also identified that we should look at 1 extra counselor at elementary. So that's included in this category that you see here. A CYC worker to work with families and a special ed teacher for ICE, continuing education, to immediately go in there and begin some of the assessment of the special ed level 1, 2, and 3s that are there. That was a weakness that we saw as well. So you'll see that out of that $1 million for staffing, the NDTA, it breaks out to basically to 8 FTE and NDTA and 2 in QP. The DAP reorganization and succession planning was, as the board is aware, and aware of that process, and that's that piece, so we can pay that up right now. That is the top end of it as well, as we know that it's a temporary piece that we're working along and to keep at a minimum. The asbestos survey, I believe that's a district process that's required and coming from the ministry, but I probably can ask Mr. Sable, and he can, or Karen?
asbestos program?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's with regards to WorkSafe BC legislation where the acceptable levels of asbestos changed. I think it's for buildings pre-1990. And we're required by WorkSafe to update our asbestos inventory as a result, and so there will be testing and a database developed. And yes, it's across the district.
the water testing is the lead water testing. Again, that has been one of those sensitive pieces that we've been working through. The IS department, the MyEd BC, on further investigation of the development of MyEd BC, we continue to need some support there. There's continued work being needed by the school districts around that, and these were two positions that we brought in from outside in the field to help support us in the field as far as the upper end of MyEd BC at the hub here. And so that's 1.4 FTE that we feel that we need to continue. By doing these pieces, then we still have 4.0 FTE teacher staffing, 2 and 2 in secondary and elementary, and that's our second semester staffing. So we still have a contingency there for halfway through the year or anything else that we need. So we feel that we're in good shape. Mr. Saywell from secondary and Mr. Davey from elementary both are feeling comfortable that they've got things under control there, and they can keep to a budget of 4 FTE. Saying all that, this also leaves the $1.5 million as part of the contingency that the board's put aside for emergent. If you recall, $750,000 of that is around extra staffing or emergent. And the other 750 was based on wellness and attendance and the trends that we have there, and also emergent equipment pieces that we may need for the school district at that time, which is still approximately 1.5% of the total budget as our emergent account. So that leaves that in its entirety now to zero to support us. And at the end of the day, at the end of the year, then if we haven't spent that, then the board has a choice of what they want to do with that again as we move forward.
Great, thanks. Question regarding the ELL enrollment, is that positive change, is that largely attributed to the Syrian refugees?
I would say that's only part of it. I think we're seeing an influx of immigration across the district, particularly at the north end. And I know the assistant soups have been looking at some additional staffing. We're actually experiencing, and I think Mr. Saywell has might comment on it, we're experiencing an increase at the secondary level now of supporting these students. And they're students from ELL moving from elementary, I think it's part of it up into secondary, and also some older students coming. So we were looking at some additional staffing there as well.
So Trustee Ray brought up an interesting point, and that is that we get the projected numbers, and then we look at the actuals that come in, and we see an increase, and we see a dollar impact. But one of the things that's difficult is to get a handle on what areas of the district are growing and what areas aren't, and what the outflows are here and what the influxes are here. I'm wondering if there is do we have some sort of tool that we can use to, or what kind of tools do we have that maybe could help some of the trustees and maybe others be able to look across the district and say, like some sort of a visual. So you could say, like, this school has extra rooms, it's got 3 extra rooms, it's had a net increase of enrollment compared to the year before, and then you can compare year on year to see, oh my gosh, this area is really taken off and growing. And
we have quite a bit of baseline data from some of the consultations we've done, and our intention will be to bring something like that to the board in late fall, early spring, so that you'll have that information as we move along. So as soon as we clear off these particulars around this kind of analysis and data that we need to have to the ministry, we'll start working on some different reports for the board. And that's one of the interesting pieces that we're interested in as well, because It's been about 2 years since we've done an analysis of the growth patterns in the district because of all the shifts and changes in schools opening and closing. So it's a good spot to take our some analysis on MyBC. And the Beauregard system does all that for us, and we just asked it to do it.
Charlene?
Thank you. I have a question about ELL enrollment and support. When I heard you say that we have a need for perhaps more staff there, when we fill those needs through hiring of staff, is there a language requirement so that they can act as interpreters when necessary? Because some of the impact that I'm hearing from parents right now is that we have students who can't speak our language and they're unable to communicate, and sometimes other students are being brought in to interpret for them, and I'm not entirely convinced that that's appropriate. So I'm just wondering if that language piece is built into that.
Well, it is. It's always very difficult to look at the different support systems in the schools, particularly in elementary, where each school is responsible for its own staffing. The portion of the staffing that's given to the school is ELL. We also have some different district level pieces. I guess it would also be questionable, or it would be interesting to look at the idea that peer helpers helping students and working through is part of the process that we're always trying to work as a school community as well. So there's that fine line always at the school level of how you're working with those types of things. I know that some schools are experiencing more difficulty than others. You know, I think in particular some of the North End schools find it difficult at this time of year because the new language students are there. They're fresh, and so as the year goes along, it improves as well. So maybe if there's some issues around that we can talk specifically, Mr. Davey would be interested in.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions regarding the update? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next item, which is 10.3, Superintendent Blaine again, and Mr. Pete Sable regarding the Hammond Bay update.
I'm going to ask Mr. Sable to come up and help us, and maybe I'll just give a little bit of a prelim here. The board has been requesting some information on Hammond Bay. Hammond Bay has been on our agenda for quite a while, and last year we put some money aside to begin a process of looking at the Hammond Bay school for this year's budget. And so Mr. Sable is going to give us some history to the whole story, and we're just letting the board know that we're doing this work, and we'll be coming back periodically as the year goes along. So, and we'll talk about it at the end. So, Pete, I'll turn it over to you if you're good.
Okay, thank you. As the superintendent indicated, thought it would be a good opportunity to provide a little bit of history. I've got a number of slides, but I'll try and work through it quickly. It'll provide the board a little bit of a background understanding of how we got where we are and why we're taking the next action that we are. Now, I want to use a pointer and point at the screen. I'm wondering which one might be the best to do that.
Oh, back there.
That one.
Just don't poke anybody in the eye.
I'll try not to shine in my, well, I'll start with this one and we'll see how. So going back to 1995, the district received planning support for an addition at Hammond Bay, and that was back when the ministry used to fund projects in 2 stages. They'd give you planning money, and then once your planning was complete, they'd consider addition. They'd consider the construction money. Before the addition project was approved for construction, it was essentially at the end of working drawings. It was about $3 million in value at that time. The ministry, in response to a quote-unquote request from the community, funded an emergent project for $1.49 million to seismically upgrade the school and provide building improvements with the remainder. The ministry had a little bit of pressure to make sure that Hammond Bay was seismically upgraded. It was one of the first in our district to be fully seismic upgraded. And in response, they in a sense severed the $3 million into 2 and funded the district right up to the maximum of a minor project at the time. The direction from the ministry was make it seismically upgraded and do as many improvements towards completing phase 2 as possible. And I'll describe what some of those were and what's remaining. So in 1999, we completed that work, and 2 shelled-in rooms were subsequently completed out of AFG. So we didn't get all of the work done that we wanted to. We got partially through some, and then we completed those following 2 rooms. Here's the aerial view of the school right now, and I'll focus a little bit on this lower area, which filled in a covered play space, and this area out the side. So along with other methods of addressing the seismic, this area underneath, which filled in the covered play area, is all brand new. A portion sticks out from the existing building. And that was used to buttress the soft story above, these 3 classrooms above. This area out the side, again, was some storage washroom space and 2 classrooms, one up and one down, again to buttress this main block seismically and also provide space towards the future addition. In phase 2, the main floor was to include demolition of the old washrooms, a new library computer lab in that location, and the finishing of some roughed-in washrooms to replace those that were demolished. And so if we look at the plan of that floor, you can see that these were the roughed-in washrooms, and this area contained the old washrooms and an old staff area. Now, and this work didn't get completed. And so right now, this area, which is washrooms, is shelled in. And this area, these old washrooms are still existing. On the lower floor, it was to include a connection between the gym and the main building, a gym expansion, which is the subject of tonight, change room facilities, and a purpose-built multi-purpose room with kitchen. And I wanted to talk a little bit about this so we're not confused about where staff believe the scope of work is, as we've been discussing. So in here is the connection. So this is the existing change room of the gym area, and this area here is corridor that fills in a connection. And this was the purpose-built multi-purpose room, was to be with a connection to the gym and a kitchen and connection to the hallway. Change areas out this way. And here is the 1/3 gym addition that we were looking at doing. So Hamlin Bay is not actually a half a gym, it's actually a 2/3 gym, but I'll talk a little bit more about that as well. So since phase 1 was complete, the district has requested every year in its capital plan phase 2. And we've also, at some point in the past, broke off to a second separate addition for the gym only. So there was 2 requests, one for the gym only and one for the addition. In 2009, the board passed a motion directing the ST to prepare a report for options for financing the gym at Hammond Bay. Came back with a report that indicated, recommended the use of restricted capital, at which point we had enough to do the gym. And other options considered were continue with the 5-year capital plan process, which wasn't addressing the issue of local capital funding, borrowing authority and paying it back with operating funds, I guess, disposal of property, or redirect other ministry capital. In later that year, 2009, the district sent a letter to the Ministry of Education with that request, and got a letter back saying that the minister was not prepared to approve the spending of restricted capital until the board approved a long-term facilities plan. In 2011, the board passed a motion asking staff to prepare a plan for the construction of the gym at Hammond Bay and apply for funding as appropriate. In November, staff came back with an information sheet and presented the 2 options. Option 1 was the gym expansion only, and option 2 was the gym expansion including the change rooms and multi-purpose area. In that report, staff recommended and the board agreed that it would be referred to the strategic planning process and incorporated in the asset management plan. And so further to that, I think I jumped ahead. I think my slides are a little out of order. Okay, I'll just skip. I think we've addressed that. That's a little bit more detailed of the gym. In that report, and I thought this was interesting, we pulled this out of the report. Staff had looked at all the open gymnasiums at the time and the relative sizes. Now we've crossed out the ones for schools that have closed since, 3 of them. You can see there's 4 schools open now with less than full-size gyms. 3 of them have 3/4-size gyms, and Hammond Bay has the 2/3 gym. In 2003, the Doug Player report came in, and that recommended an addition to the gym at Hammond Bay. And in 2013, the board passed a motion asking staff to commence the process of building an addition. And in 2013, the district started its request to the city for discussion about a partnership on the gymnasium. We'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. In 2014, staff proceeded to revisit the gym and the addition costing, and that was presented to the city of Nanaimo for further discussion. In June of 2015, the updated facilities plan called for staff to work with the city of Nanaimo and begin planning the work, and the board had set aside $25,000. The last bit of information, of course, is this September we submitted the capital plan, and Hammond Bay had 4 associated requests. One was for the gym addition, one was for an expansion, one is for a school enhancement project to upgrade a portion of the school for indoor air quality, and then one was for the carbon neutral capital plan to install the heat exchanger, which was borrowing the heat from the sewer outfall next door. All of that background to bring us to the point where staff want to let the board in on the next steps. The next step would be to revisit the gym addition, and that would be the gym addition only, not the change rooms and the multi-purpose room, to bring that project to current ministry PDR requirements. That's over 25, that design is now over 20 years ago. And so now, if we're going to proceed with the design, we need to take another look at it, see if it meets current building and local regulations, take a look at the geotechnical, update hazmat, as you know the standards have changed, take another look at the seismic structural, as structural standards, seismic standards have changed, and then of course update the costing. It's not an in-depth review, as the design is essentially there, but it does need to be done to take us to that next step. It also aligns us with the ministry planning language and reports so that we can demonstrate to them we're doing our due diligence. In taking a look at this, staff realized that the current enrollment projections aren't congruent with the old Phase 2 plan. So the current enrollments call for a larger school than what Phase 2 indicated. So prior to beginning the gym PDR, staff intend to revisit the Phase 2 plan, and which has essentially been acting as our master plan and feasibility to this point. We want to ensure that all the assumptions made 20 years ago are still valid, and that all the current planning requirements are considered. And so what does that really mean? Well, I've got a lot of words here, and I'll try and describe it. We need to understand the site is small and the school is pushed up into the right-hand corner of the site, if you will. And we need to understand, if we're going to make the building larger than the Phase 2 indicates, if that's the ultimate intent of the future of that school site, we need to reconfirm that the placement of the classrooms, the placement of the library, the placement of the gym addition, the multipurpose room are still valid. And currently, the numbers we're looking at would indicate that we require up to 3 more classrooms in the future than we currently have designed under Phase 2. It would also give us an opportunity to take another look at the functionality and other elements on the site, such as parking, play space, etc. Are they in the correct locations? One last little item, re-engaging the architect and moving ahead with planning and design work does involve discussions with the city. It does involve discussions with the school. That work is yet to, the exact details have yet to be worked out, but it could create the perception that the project is in fact approved. Going out and talking about projects does in fact generate excitement around those projects. So a little bit of work in communicating around that perception may be required. So we'll be working on that as well. And that's it. I'll pause for questions.
Trustee Ray?
Thank you for your presentation. That clearly lays out a vision going forward, and I think that's the prudent way to approach this, is to, obviously the things have changed in 20 years, and we need to revisit how we approach this, and I think everybody at this table is committed to doing something here. We just need to make sure that we do the right thing. So I certainly support your approach to this, and thank you for doing your due diligence. I guess my question would be to you, Superintendent Blaine, when would it be appropriate to have some kind of visioning committee where the community would be involved in this?
So, in a normal process, we would go to the design and go out and see what the phases would look like. After the design phase and the board gives us the approval to move forward, that's when we would probably involve the construction committee and taking a look at some of the intricate parts to what it should look like as we move along. So at that time, we would go out to the school the school community through its PAC and et cetera to start that. Very similar to other schools that we've done, Cedar Elementary and those types of things where we involve the community. What we're kind of looking at here is, we are looking at a timeline where Mr. Sable has communicated to me that we can do the first mock-ups of the phases and have the design phase looked at over the next 3 or 4 months. Have it ready for January, February. Simultaneously, we can look at what the next steps are with that, and also work it into the 2020 vision for learning for that, and how the influence of that. That's the commitment if the board chooses to move forward with Hammond Bay, and you get the total package in the sense of it would, if we choose to just do the gymnasium there, that's part of the fix, but not all the fix. If we believe as a district that Hammond Bay is an integral part of our school system, then, and that's where we want our French immersion, particularly in the north end, then we should maybe look at the opportunity to go in, complete what we need to do so it's stabilized for the next 20 or 30 years, that idea. So I think it's prudent that we do the work right now, and as soon as we complete the staff work and the consultant work, then it moves into phase 2, board approval to move forward, and also the parent involvement, taking a look at the plans.
Thank you. And just to follow up, if that's okay, could you say that we can expect something back January timeframe, January, February, something like that? Is that realistic?
Yep, that was what we had indicated. We have yet to engage the consultant, and we'll have a more accurate timeline after we do, but that's the feeling.
Thank you.
Trustee Brzovic?
My question's been asked and answered.
Trustee Rowley?
So just kind of a follow-up to what Trustee Ray said. By then, do you expect to hear from the city? Because of course, you got the city and also the province on what, like, will they have answered your funding applications by then for this year?
Through the chair, to be, I guess, in a sense blunt, the district staff have proposed a number of times to city staff, and we're not getting very much uptake from the idea of sharing a gymnasium. So we're proceeding, we're keeping the city informed of how we're proceeding in our planning and what we're doing, and at any time they're welcome to participate, and we'll continue to approach them with how they can participate with us. It's with respect to the ministry, I think that at some point we may want to reapproach the ministry depending on how we choose to fund the project, to see if there's an appetite to participate with us as well. At this point, they've made it clear that it's not something that they're willing to fund in the current capital environment.
Through the chair, Mr. Sable, when does the ministry come out with the capital grants?
They've indicated that we'll hear in approximately May. April,
so
May, yeah.
For Trustee Routley, in May, you will find out whether or not any of those 4 categories have been accepted as a priority for Hammond Bay. And that can be included in on how we develop whatever phase we have, right?
So if we had a plan moving forward and they funded part of it, great.
Then
Yeah.
staff goes to work with the ministry on how that can connect together, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation, because I think that the history that you shared helps some of the new trustees understand exactly how many times this can has been booted around. And certainly, no matter what we do with Hammond Bay, whether it's just a gym or whether it's something more, whenever it's done, it won't be soon enough for that community. But I think it's important also to note that, interestingly enough, as we move forward with even plans and updated costing and all of those things, that we're still involved in a higher level discussion about what to do within all of the central area, which I believe includes Hammond Bay. So I don't know, moving forward, there may be an appetite to merge French immersion together, or who knows, right? So stay tuned, I guess, right? Any other questions? Trustee Solomon?
So it is just a confirmation. So with the consultant being involved and producing a report down the line, and it will, I'm assuming that the costs will be attached to that report in terms of the different possibilities of the project. Gym, additional classrooms. Is that correct?
That's correct. We would expect that quite specifically, one of the outcomes we want, an accurate outcome, is a revisited cost of the gym addition. Costing in keeping with the PDR stage, which is the last, in a sense, approval stage before we move straight towards construction. So it has to be a reasonably accurate cost estimate. Any cost estimates, and we weren't really thinking of anything that detailed for the master plan, would be more in the notional range, very high level costing, based on sort of the ministry's WebCap standard costing information, where you just plug the areas in to a spreadsheet in a sense, and it pumps out a number for you, including planning, etc. So we'd use a more generalized costing approach to any sort of future addition to the school.
So I'd just like to follow up just really briefly. I think that there is a general consensus that I have a long-term history here that an expansion of the gym has been wanted and needed for a long time. And of course, now we've talked about enrollment numbers. If we're going to keep the Hammond Bay site, and we're going to have 370 children at that site, that there's going to be a strong push, and quite rightly so, for extra accommodation for those children. And so, as part of that design and with the consultants, I think that would be an important element to bring back to the board as there's more discussion.
And I should add that the information that we prepare under the master planning, that will feed back into the capital plan process for next year, and provide the ministry with a little bit more detailed information as to, along with the higher level visioning work, as to what the district intends to do with the site. And that'll help our case for future capital events.
Thank you.
Trustee Robinson?
Just very briefly, that was painful listening to that history. And I know this board, or I'm confident that this board is committed to a decision of some kind being made, and more than that, action taken to correct this situation, which has gone on far too long.
Any other questions, comments? Moving on to the last item on the agenda would be 10.4, an update from the Secretary Treasurer about our boardroom reconfiguration.
So we're on schedule for the new boardroom layout to be in place for our board meeting on October 19th. We've had a delay on the chairs, so we'll, in the new temporary setup, use the current chairs, but the tables will be in place for that meeting. And then we'll reevaluate whether or not it's working from there.
Will we have any downtime with respect to the live feed? No?
I'm going to refer that question to our Director of Communications, Dale.
Through the chair, there won't be a delay. What we can do is, these cameras may be down, however, I have portable cameras that we can use. That's all part of the plan. We'll make sure that that's ready.
Okay. Any questions? There's no new business for information. Questions? I don't know if that's a confidentiality issue. So Adrienne Leguter has a question regarding the Hammond Bay Gym.
Refer this to staff.
Do we need to read it?
I don't think so. I think it's some personal nature.
My name is Adrienne Leguiter. I am the PAC chair at Hammond Bay, École Hammond Bay. So my question is, what's not to say that after these consultations that this project isn't shelved yet again? It's understandable waiting until May for the gathering of information, but I guess you all understand the apprehension that the school community has going through another, wasting another year.
So if I said, trust us, you might not.
After 14 years.
Well, I can certainly understand your frustration, and I think as Trustee Robinson indicated, it was painful to listen to the history, and certainly many that are on the board currently were not involved in any of the decisions that had been made in the past. And I think, as Trustee Robinson said, I think this board is committed to doing something. And certainly it won't be soon enough for the community, but we're committed to doing something. And it just now remains a matter of what that's going to look like. And hopefully it'll be better than just a gym addition. But of course it depends on funding and other priorities, and there's no guarantee, right? But I think we are committed to doing something. So
Yeah, it's just, the frustration level is
absolutely, I can
there.
completely appreciate that.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Through the chair, I'm not going to read the particulars on this, but it's around EA assignments for a school. And with the new monies that are assigned there, in our EA, the question is, how is that going to be assigned out? And so it's a normal process at the school level to go through your principal and et cetera, address those questions. I will forward this on to also to Mr. Essinger, and hopefully they can work on it together.
Thank you. Sure. And that's it.
Move to adjourn.
Second. All those in favor?